The massive alien ships dropped out of hyperspace, like metal mountains appearing in the void. 7 different species made up the HFY Empire, and they had been conquering worlds for 3,000 years. Their ships gleamed with advanced technology that could turn planets into dust. Admiral Zixthara stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the small blue world through the viewing screen. Earth looked peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling over green and brown continents. It reminded him of dozens of other worlds he had conquered. The pattern was always the same. Scan their military capabilities, Zixthara ordered his tactical officer. The scans came back quickly. The humans had primitive rockets that barely reached their own moon. Their weapons were crude projectiles that fired metal bullets. They had no energy shields, no plasma cannons, no faster-than-light travel. It would be another easy victory. Send the standard surrender demand, the Admiral commanded. On Earth, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command center of the Earth Defense Force. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in 3 wars already, and his body carried the scars to prove it. The communication came through the speakers in perfect English, though everyone knew it was being translated by alien computers. People of Earth, the voice said, cold and emotionless. You are now part of the HFY Empire. Surrender your weapons and prepare for integration. Resistance will result in the destruction of your world. Morrison looked around the room at his officers. Commander Lisa Torres sat at the weapons console, her dark eyes hard with anger. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Rodriguez monitored the communication systems, his jaw tight. These were people who had never backed down from a fight in their lives. Sir? Torres asked, waiting for orders. Morrison keyed the communication system. His voice was calm and steady when he replied to the aliens. This is Captain Jake Morrison, of the Earth Defense Force. You want our world? Come and take it. The alien admiral stared at his communication officer in confusion. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever refused the initial surrender demand. Most civilizations begged for mercy after seeing the size of the HFY fleet. Did we translate that correctly? Zixthara asked. Yes, Admiral. The humans are refusing to surrender. Very well. Begin the demonstration bombardment. Target their military installations. Use minimal force. They will surrender once they see our power. The HFY ships opened fire with surgical precision. Bright beams of energy lanced down from space, striking military bases around the world. The aliens expected to see the humans panic and immediately offer their surrender. Instead, something incredible happened. The human ships began launching from hidden bases around Earth. They were small and crude compared to the alien vessels, but they kept coming. The USS Montana, a destroyer that should have been destroyed by the first alien shot, kept fighting even as atmosphere leaked from holes in its hull. Admiral, a tactical officer reported, his voice confused. The human ship is heading directly toward us. It's accelerating on a collision course. Zixthara watched in disbelief as the human ship, trailing fire and debris, slammed into one of his cruisers. Both ships exploded in a ball of nuclear fire. He had never seen anything like it. Why? Did they do that? He wondered aloud. The answer came from above. Commander Lisa Torres had managed to get her fighter through the alien formation. Her ship was damaged, with one engine dead and her cockpit cracking from the vacuum of space. But she had something. The aliens didn't expect Torres armed with the nuclear warhead she had been saving for this moment. Her ship was dying around her, but she could still complete her mission. She aimed directly for the alien flagship's command section. This is Commander Torres to all human forces, she said into her radio. Tell them we don't give up. Tell them we don't surrender. Welcome to Earth. Her ship exploded against the alien flagship and the nuclear warhead detonated inside their shields. The massive alien vessel shuddered and began to list to one side. Admiral Zixthara picked himself up from the deck, his mind struggling to understand what had just happened. The humans had sacrificed their own ships to damage his fleet. No species in the galaxy fought like this. It was madness. "Damage report," he ordered. "Flagship engines offline. Cruiser Vexdai destroyed. Light cruiser Morthal heavily damaged. We've lost 12% of our firepower." Zixthara looked at the tactical display. More human ships were coming, and they were all flying directly at his vessels. These creatures weren't trying to win a normal space battle. They were trying to take as many aliens with them as they could. On Earth, Captain Morrison watched the battle unfold on his screens. They were losing ships, but they were hurting the aliens too. That was more than anyone had expected from the first engagement. "Sir," Rodriguez reported, "the alien fleet is pulling back to a safe distance." Morrison nodded. The aliens had superior technology, but they clearly hadn't expected this kind of fight. They would regroup and come back with a different plan. But for now, humanity had sent a message. The Vexhai Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds, but Earth would not be an easy victory. The humans would fight for every inch of space, every city, every life. They would make the aliens pay a price for conquest that the Empire had never faced before. Admiral Zixthara stared at the blue world below and tried to understand what had just happened. His species had rules for warfare. They had honor codes and tactical doctrines developed over thousands of years. But these humans seemed to fight with something else entirely. They fought like they had nothing left to lose. 6 months had passed since the first battle. The Vingshai Empire sent a much larger fleet this time, with twice as many ships and their best military commander. War Commander Kelthus had conquered 47 worlds in his career. He had studied human tactics and believed he understood their weakness. "They rely on suicide attacks," Kelthus told his officers as they approached Earth. "Keep our ships at long range. Use bombardment weapons. Don't let them get close enough to ram us." The human survivors had not been idle during those 6 months. They had pulled apart every piece of alien technology they could find. Captain Jake Morrison now commanded from Luna Base, humanity's main military station on the moon. He had a new weapon to test. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Rodriguez stood in the command center, watching the alien fleet approach. The humans had prepared something special for this battle. Operation Lazarus had taken months to set up, and everything depended on perfect timing. "They're staying back this time," Rodriguez observed. "Long-range bombardment, just like we expected." Morrison nodded. "Let them think they learned our lesson. Begin Phase 1. The alien fleet opened fire from a safe distance, their energy weapons reaching across space to strike human positions. The Vichai ships stayed in tight formation, supporting each other with overlapping shields. It was textbook fleet warfare. For 3 hours, the aliens bombarded Earth's defenses. Their sensors showed human ships being destroyed, military installations going offline, defensive positions crumbling. War Commander Kelthus was satisfied with the results. "The humans are learning that their primitive tactics won't work twice," he told his tactical officer. "Prepare for the final assault." That was when Morrison gave the signal, "Execute Lazarus." All around the solar system, human ships that had been playing dead for months suddenly came alive. The EDF Arizona emerged from the shadow of the asteroid Ceres, where it had been hiding without power for half a year. The Lincoln rose from beneath the frozen surface of Europa, breaking through the ice like a submarine surfacing. Captain Amy Chun brought the Roosevelt out of its hiding spot in Saturn's rings, where the ship had been drifting silent and cold. Each vessel had been modified with captured alien technology and equipped with humanity's newest weapon. "What is this?" Kelthus demanded as his sensors detected ships appearing throughout the solar system. Where did they come from? The answer came in the form of kinetic kill vehicles. Humans had learned that alien energy shields could stop plasma and laser weapons, but they couldn't stop solid metal moving at incredible speeds. The hidden ships began firing tungsten rods, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. First impacts caught the Vex-High fleet completely off guard. A kinetic round punched through the flagship's shields like they weren't there, tearing a hole through 3 decks before exiting the other side. More impacts followed, each one hitting with the force of a nuclear weapon. Shields are useless against their weapons, the tactical officer reported. They're using simple metal projectiles, but accelerated to tremendous velocity. Kelphis realized he had been outmaneuvered. The humans hadn't just learned alien technology, they had improved it. Every piece of debris in the asteroid belt seemed to hide human weapons. Every moon could be a disguised military base. "Sir," came a report from the communications officer, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from multiple directions. They have ships everywhere." The human strategy became clear. They hadn't just built hidden bases. They had turned the entire solar system into a weapons platform. Mining stations on asteroids revealed themselves to be missile launchers. What looked like debris turned out to be camouflage ships. Captain Chun's voice came over the tactical network as the Roosevelt fired another barrage of kinetic weapons. "Target the command ships first. Make them lose coordination." The battle turned into chaos for the Vex-High fleet. They had come prepared for another desperate human assault, but instead found themselves caught in a carefully planned trap. Human ships attacked from every direction, using the planets and asteroids as cover. War Commander Kelphis tried to restore order to his formation, but the humans had studied alien tactics too. Every time he moved his ships to counter one threat, another attack came from a different angle. It was like fighting shadows. "Sir, we need to retreat," his second-in-command advised. "We've lost 40% of our fleet." But Kelphis was not ready to admit defeat. As his ships pulled back, he managed to capture several human vessels that had been damaged in the fighting. Among the prisoners was Sergeant Pete Williams, a Marine whose ship had been crippled during the battle. War Commander decided to interrogate the human personally. In his experience, most species would reveal military secrets when properly motivated. He brought Williams to his private chambers, confident that he could break the primitive creature. "Your resistance is pointless," Kelphis told the human. "We have conquered 1,000 worlds. What makes you think your species is special?" Williams sat in the restraint chair and said nothing. His uniform was burned, and his face was bruised, but his eyes remained steady. He gave only his name, rank, and serial number. "You can end this suffering," Kelphis continued. "Tell me the locations of your hidden bases. Tell me how many ships you have left." Instead of answering, Williams asked his own question. "How many eggs do your people lay at one time?" The alien commander was confused. "What does that matter?" "Just curious about your family structure. Do you have nurseries? Schools? How do you raise your young?" Kelphis realized that the human was trying to gather intelligence about Vex-High civilian populations. Even as a prisoner, the creature was still thinking like a soldier. This was not the behavior of a defeated enemy. "You're gathering information about our non-combatants," Kelphis said. Williams shrugged. "You started a war. Wars have consequences." The war commander felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. In all his campaigns, captured enemies had either begged for mercy or remained silent. None had ever tried to learn about his people's weaknesses while being interrogated. He began to understand that humans thought about warfare differently than any species the Empire had encountered. They didn't just fight armies, they studied entire civilizations, looking for ways to bring down their enemy's ability to make war dot as his fleet retreated from the solar system. Kelthus sent a message back to the Empire's capital. The humans were more dangerous than anyone had imagined. They learned quickly, adapted their tactics, and fought with a level of cunning that bordered on frightening. The war commander had won 47 victories in his career, but Earth had handed him his first defeat, and he suspected it would not be his last. 18 months after first contact, the Vex-High Empire decided to end the human problem once and for all. Emperor Vorthak himself took command of the largest fleet in the galaxy's history. He brought weapons that could crack planets and warriors. From the most savage species in the Empire, the Emperor expected to find a weakened enemy when he arrived at Earth. Instead, his scouts reported something impossible. The entire solar system had been turned into a fortress. Major Kate Sullivan commanded the orbital defense grid from Command Station Olympus, a massive structure built in Earth's orbit. She watched the alien fleet approach on her tactical displays and smiled grimly. Humanity had spent every day since the last battle preparing for this moment. "How many ships?" she asked her tactical officer. "Over 3,000, Mom. Dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, and support vessels. It's the largest fleet we've ever seen." Sullivan nodded. "Good. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Signal. All stations. Execute Battle Plan Omega." The aliens had expected to find the same primitive defenses they had faced before. Instead, they found a solar system that had been completely militarized. Every space station bristled with railguns. Civilian ships had been converted to carry hidden weapons. The asteroid belt had become a three-dimensional minefield. Emperor Vorthak studied the tactical reports with growing concern. The humans had built weapons inside the gas giants, using the dense atmospheres to hide massive installations. Ships were moving at velocities that should have torn them apart, but somehow the humans had learned to survive the acceleration. How? "Are they coordinating attacks across such distances?" he asked his science officer. "Unknown, Emperor. They appear to be using quantum communication networks that we cannot intercept or jam." Admiral Ben Foster commanded the human response from the EDF Leningrad, a massive battleship built from salvaged alien technology. He had implemented tactics that seemed to violate the laws of physics, but actually used alien science in ways the creators had never imagined. "All ships, execute pattern Delta 7, Foster ordered. "Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive." The human fleet moved in formations that made no sense to alien military doctrine. Ships would separate by millions of kilometers, then coordinate attacks with split-second timing. They used gravity wells to slingshot around planets, building up incredible speed before striking alien formations. The Vex-High discovered the humans didn't just adapt alien technology. They improved it in terrifying ways. Medical nanobots designed to heal wounds had been reprogrammed to consume alien ship hulls. Gravity generators became weapons that could create artificial black holes. Communication arrays were turned into directed energy weapons. Commander Steve Carter led a strike force using a tactic that no alien military theorist had ever considered. His ships disguised themselves as debris from previous battles, complete with fake damage and energy signatures that made them appear to be floating corpses. "Hold position," Carter whispered into his comm as alien ships passed nearby. "Look dead until my signal." The fake debris field drifted into the heart of the alien formation. The VSI sensors detected nothing but wreckage from destroyed human vessels. They had no idea that each piece of debris contained a fully armed warship. "Now," Carter ordered. The graveyard came alive. Dozens of human ships suddenly powered up inside the alien formation, their weapons already aimed at critical targets. The surprise was complete, but the humans were paying a terrible price for their resistance. Emperor Vorthik had brought weapons, designed to destroy entire worlds. Energy beams lanced down from space, turning Earth cities into glass. Billions of people died in the first few hours of the assault. Captain Rachel Thompson commanded the carrier Yorktown, one of the few large human ships left in the battle. Her vessel had taken massive damage, with entire sections blown away and half her crew dead. But she still had one card left to play. "All hands, abandon ship," she ordered over the intercom. "This is not a drill. Get to the escape pods now." Thompson remained on the bridge as her crew evacuated. She had spotted the Emperor's personal dreadnought, a massive ship that served as the flagship of the entire alien fleet. If she could take it out, the aliens would lose their supreme commander. "Bridge to engineering," she called on the comm. "Set the reactor to overload. Full containment failure in 60 seconds. The chief engineer's voice came back, calm despite the chaos. "Understood, Captain. It's been an honor serving with you." Thompson aimed her dying ship at the Emperor's vessel and pushed the engines to maximum. The Yorktown accelerated toward the alien dreadnought, trailing fire and debris. The reactor overload would turn her ship into a weapon more powerful than any bomb. The Vex-High tried to shoot down the approaching carrier, but it was too late. The Yorktown crashed into the Emperor's ship just as the reactor went critical. The explosion lit up space like a new star. Emperor Vorthik survived the blast, but his flagship was crippled and thousands of his crew were dead. He stared at the tactical display in shock. The human had sacrificed her life, and her ship just to damage his vessel. Why? He asked his tactical officer. Why would she do that? The officer had no answer. In all the Empire's history, no enemy had ever fought with such determination. Most species surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. The humans seemed to fight harder when the odds were against them. On the surface of Earth, the few surviving cities burned under alien bombardment. But even in defeat, the humans refused to give up. Commander Eric Brown led resistance fighters to the ruins of Sydney, using the rubble as weapons and turning every street corner into a potential ambush. "They can destroy our cities," Brown told his fighters, "but they can't destroy our will to fight. Make them pay for every block, every building, every life." The battle for Earth's solar system raged for 3 days. When it was over, the planet was scarred beyond recognition. But the human fleet still existed, and the Vex-High had paid a price they had never imagined. The Emperor had lost half his fleet, including his flagship and thousands of his best warriors, as the alien fleet pulled back to lick its wounds. Emperor Vorthik realized that conquering humanity would require something the Empire had never done before. They would have to hold every meter of ground simultaneously, fight for every position, and face an enemy that would never surrender. The humans had turned their entire civilization into a weapon. Every survivor was a potential soldier. Every piece of technology a potential threat. The Vex-High had won the battle, but they were beginning to understand that winning the war would be something else entirely. Major Sullivan, commanding the defense from her damaged station, sent a message to all human forces throughout the galaxy. "This is not the end. This is just the beginning. Make them regret ever finding Earth." Earth was a burning ruin, but humanity was far from defeated. The survivors had scattered across the galaxy, taking their war to the stars. They had nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. Admiral Tony Martinez led the newly formed Terran Expeditionary Force, turning the hunters into the hunted. The Vex-High Empire had never faced an enemy that followed them home. For 3,000 years, they had fought wars on other people's worlds. Now human ships appeared in their core systems like ghosts, striking without warning and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. Colonel Janet Hayes commanded operations from the stealth ship Phantom, a vessel built with the best of human and alien technology. Her ship could hide in the shadow of a moon and remain undetected for weeks. She coordinated attacks across 100 light years, turning the galaxy into a battlefield. Target confirmed, Hayes reported to Admiral Martinez. Vex High Supply Depot in the Kepler system. 3 cargo vessels and minimal security. Martinez studied the tactical display. The humans had learned to think like pirates and terrorists, hitting soft targets to cause maximum damage with minimum risk. It was a type of warfare the Empire had never encountered. Execute the raid, Martinez ordered. Make sure they know we were there. Captain Roy Jenkins brought his destroyer out of hyperspace inside the shipping lane, his weapons already charging. The Vex High cargo ships were massive but slow, carrying supplies to a dozen different worlds. They were perfect targets for hit-and-run attacks. "This is Captain Jenkins of the Terran Expeditionary Force," he broadcast on all frequencies. "You are carrying supplies that support the war against humanity. Surrender your cargo or be destroyed." The alien cargo captain tried to run, but his ship was too slow. Jenkins' destroyer closed the distance and began systematically destroying the cargo vessels. He took no prisoners and left no survivors. The message was clear. Supporting the war against humanity came with a price. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Davis led deep strike missions that targeted Vex High infrastructure. Her team specialized in destroying things the aliens thought were safe. Communication relays that had operated for centuries suddenly went silent. Mining operations that had fed the Empire's war machine stopped producing ore. "Hit the fuel depot next," Davis told her demolition expert as they planted charges in a Vex High refinery. "If they can't fuel their ships, they can't chase us." The humans had learned to wage war, not just against armies, but against entire civilizations. Ability to support those armies. They attacked farms, factories, and transportation networks. They made the simple act of living in the Empire dangerous and uncertain. The Empire's member species began to fracture under the pressure. The Kron had joined the Vex High for protection, but now their homeworlds were under constant attack. Their industrial centers burned, their trade routes were cut, and their people lived in fear. War Commander Kelthus found himself fighting on 7 different fronts simultaneously. Every time he moved forces to counter one human attack, another strike force appeared somewhere else. His fleet was spread too thin to defend everything. "How many ships do the humans have?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Unknown, sir." They appear to be building new vessels using captured alien technology. Every raid gives them more resources to work with. The Veltar, bred for space combat, couldn't adapt to humanity's unpredictable tactics. They expected formal battles with clear objectives and honorable opponents. Instead, they faced an enemy that struck from the shadows and disappeared before they could respond. Emperor Vorthek faced the greatest crisis in the Empire's history. Species that had never known defeat were beginning to question his leadership. Some were secretly negotiating separate peace deals with the humans. Others were simply withdrawing their forces and going home. "The humans are destroying our ability to wage war," his chief advisor reported. "They're not trying to conquer territory. They're trying to make the cost of fighting them too high to bear." On the ruins of Earth, Commander Eric Brown continued his guerrilla campaign against the occupation forces. The aliens had conquered the cities, but they couldn't control the wasteland. Brown's fighters moved through the rubble like ghosts, striking at supply convoys and command posts. They thought conquering Earth would be the end, Brown told his fighters as they prepared another ambush. But holding it is going to cost them everything. The Vex High occupation forces found themselves fighting a war they couldn't win. Every building could hide snipers. Every piece of debris could be a bomb. The humans used their own destroyed cities as weapons, turning the rubble into a maze of death traps. Admiral Martinez realized that humanity was winning the war in a way the aliens couldn't understand. The Vex-High measured victory in conquered worlds and destroyed fleets. Humans measured victory in their enemies' growing fear and the increasing cost of maintaining their empire. "Sir," Colonel Hayes reported during a strategy meeting, "our intelligence suggests that 3 more species are considering leaving the empire. The war is becoming too expensive for them." Martinez nodded. "Good. That's exactly what we want. Make it clear to everyone in the galaxy that allying with the Vex-High against humanity is a losing proposition." Captain Jenkins led another raid, this time targeting a Vex-High military academy. The young alien cadets had never seen real combat, and they broke under the ferocity of the human attack. Jenkins made sure some of them escaped to tell their story. Survivors would return to their homes with tales of human savagery, of warriors who fought without honor or mercy. The stories would spread, and the Empire would have to deal with the growing fear among its own people. Lieutenant Commander Davis destroyed another communication relay, cutting off an entire star system from the Empire's command network. Without coordination, the local forces became isolated and vulnerable. Some surrendered. Others simply abandoned their posts and went home. The Vex-High Empire, which had seemed invincible just a few years earlier, was coming apart at the seams. The humans had found their weakness. The Empire was too large to defend and too diverse to hold together under pressure. Emperor Vorthik stood in his throne room, looking at reports of defeats and retreats from across the galaxy. The humans had taught him something he had never learned in 3,000 years of conquest. Sometimes, the best way to win a war is to make it too expensive for your enemy to continue fighting. "Prepare the fleet," he told his generals. "We end this now, before we lose everything." But as he gave the order, Vorthik knew that the humans had already won something more important than any battle. They had proven that the mighty Vex-High Empire could be beaten. And once that knowledge spread through the galaxy, nothing would ever be the same again. 3 years after first contact, the war reached its final stage. The Vex-High Empire, stretched across hundreds of worlds and facing rebellions from within, made one last desperate push to destroy humanity before their entire civilization collapsed. General Paul Newton commanded the human defense from the mobile command ship Defiance. The vessel was built from salvaged alien technology and powered by human determination. Newton had learned every lesson that 3 years of war could teach, and he was ready for the Empire's final gambit. The aliens brought their most devastating weapons to the Alpha Centauri system, where humanity had built its new capital, planet crackers. That could split worlds in half. Temporal disruptors that could erase ships from existence. Psionic weapons designed to drive entire populations insane. Emperor Vorthik commanded the assault personally. He had gathered the remaining loyal species of his empire for one final battle. If he could destroy the human leadership and their new home, the rebellion would collapse. The scattered human raiders would have nowhere to retreat to. "This ends today," Vorthik declared to his fleet commanders. "We will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Empire." But the humans had prepared for this moment. They had learned to turn every alien advantage against them. Captain Nicole Roberts commanded a squadron of ships equipped with temporal shielding, technology stolen from a Vex-High research station. Her vessels could operate inside the aliens' time distortion fields. "All ships engage temporal shields," Roberts ordered as the alien weapons opened fire. "Show them that their super weapons don't work on us anymore." Major Chris Anderson led Marines who had been genetically modified with captured alien DNA. The modifications made them immune to psionic attacks and stronger than any human had a right to be. When the aliens tried to break their minds, the Marines just smiled and kept fighting. The battle raged across the Alpha Centauri system. Both sides threw everything they had at each other. Entire fleets were destroyed in minutes. Planets were scarred by weapons that could reshape matter itself. The very fabric of space-time warped under the assault. Admiral Martinez watched the battle unfold from his command ship. He had one final card to play, something the humans had been preparing since the war began. Operation Endgame would either end the conflict or destroy both civilizations. Sarah, are your teams in position? Martinez asked over the quantum communicator. Commander Lisa Walsh's voice came back from deep in Vex High space. She was leading a suicide mission to the Empire's Central Communication Hub, the facility that allowed 7 different species to coordinate their actions across the galaxy. We're at the target, Admiral, beginning final approach. The Vex High had never imagined that anyone would attack their most heavily defended installation. The communication hub was protected by an entire fleet and surrounded by automated defense platforms. It was supposed to be impossible to reach, but Walsh's team had learned to do impossible things. They approached the hub inside a captured alien supply ship, using stolen codes to pass through the outer defenses. By the time the Vex High realized what was happening, it was too late. Charges set, Walsh reported. 10 seconds to detonation. The explosion that destroyed the communication hub sent shockwaves across the galaxy. In an instant, the 7 species of the Vex High Empire lost their ability to coordinate. Ships that had fought together for millennia suddenly couldn't talk to each other. Emperor Vorthik watched his fleet fall into chaos. Without the communication network, his diverse forces began operating according to their own instincts and traditions. Ancient rivalries that had been suppressed for centuries suddenly erupted. The Kron ships turned their weapons on the Viltar vessels, settling old scores. The Morvac fleet simply stopped fighting and began to retreat toward their home worlds. The careful coordination that had made the Empire invincible dissolved in minutes. What have they done? Vorthik demanded. How did they know? His tactical officer was struggling to restore order, but it was hopeless. Sir, without the central network, we can't coordinate fleet movements. Each species is reverting to its own command structure. The human fleet pressed their advantage. General Newton ordered a full assault while the aliens were still in chaos. Human ships that had been fighting desperately suddenly found themselves facing a disorganized enemy. Captain Roberts led her squadron through the alien formation, targeting command ships and communication relays. Every alien vessel she destroyed made the chaos worse. The mighty Vex High fleet began destroying itself. The war's turning point came when the largest alien species, the Drog, decided they had enough. Their massive dreadnoughts turned away from the battle and began the long journey home. Other species quickly followed, abandoning the empire that had brought them nothing but defeat. Emperor Vorthik found himself commanding a fraction of his original fleet. The species that remained were those too proud to retreat or too afraid to abandon their posts. He faced a choice that no emperor in 3,000 years had ever confronted: surrender or watch his entire civilization die. Open a communication channel to the human fleet, he ordered quietly. The meeting took place on a neutral space station in the ruins of what had once been Earth's greatest city. President Martha Cole, the elected leader of humanity's survivors, sat across from Emperor Vorthik. Between them sat Admiral Martinez and the alien's few remaining advisors. Vorthik looked old and tired. The war had aged him beyond his years. He studied the human leaders with eyes that had seen too much death and destruction. I must ask, Vorthik said finally, how did you do it? My empire conquered 1,000 worlds. We had superior technology, larger fleets, more experienced warriors. How did you defeat us? Martinez leaned back in his chair. His answer was simple and direct. You fight to expand your empire. We fought because we had nothing left to lose. You can't overcome that kind of motivation with better technology. President Cole added her own perspective. Your people fight for conquest and glory. Our people fight for survival and revenge. Those are two very different kinds of warfare. Vorthik nodded slowly. We thought we understood combat. We had studied warfare for millennia. But you showed us something we never considered. What's that? Martinez asked. The difference between fighting to win and fighting to survive. You turned your entire civilization into a weapon. Every human became a soldier. Every piece of technology became a tool of war. We were fighting an army. You were fighting for your existence. The surrender negotiations took weeks, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Vex-High Empire was finished. The member species negotiated separate peace treaties with humanity. Some became allies, others retreated to distant corners of the galaxy. But all of them carried the same message to the rest of the universe. The humans don't fight like anyone else. They don't think like anyone else. They don't surrender. They don't break, and they don't forget. Cross them at your own risk. Years later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of humanity's first colony ship. He was an old man now, with white hair and tired eyes. A young alien refugee approached him, one of the many species that had sought shelter with humanity after the Empire's collapse. Captain Morrison, the young alien asked, how did humans become so good at war? Morrison looked out at the stars and thought about all the friends he had lost. All the cities that had burned, all the sacrifices that had been made. His answer came slowly, each word carefully chosen. We didn't become good at war, Morrison said finally. War became good at making us who we needed to be. The young alien looked confused. I don't understand, Morrison smiled sadly. Most species fight wars to gain something, territory, resources, power. But sometimes, if you're unlucky, you find yourself in a war where you're fighting for everything. Your home, your family, your right to exist. When that happens, you discover what you're really capable of. But your tactics, your strategies, they were so different from anything we had seen. That's because we weren't following any rule book, Morrison explained. The Vex-High had thousands of years of military tradition. They had proper ways to fight, honorable codes of conduct, strategies that had worked for centuries. We had desperation and imagination. The alien was quiet for a moment. Were you afraid? Morrison nodded, terrified. Every day. But fear can be a weapon too, if you know how to use it. Fear made us creative. Fear made us ruthless. Fear made us willing to try things that no sane military commander would ever consider. Through the viewport, they could see the new human colonies spreading across the star system. Ships carrying refugees from a dozen different species moved between the worlds. The galaxy was rebuilding, but it would never be the same. The Vex-High thought they understood us after the first battle, Morrison continued. They studied our tactics, adapted their strategies, brought bigger fleets. But they never understood the most important thing about humanity. What was that? We learn faster when we're losing than when we're winning. Every defeat taught us something new. Every casualty made us more determined. The more they hurt us, the more dangerous we became. A communication officer approached Morrison with a message tablet. It was a report from the outer colonies. Another species had requested permission to settle in human space, seeking protection from the chaos left by the MP.